Real here.
Right. All right. Well, let's rock and roll.
Okay,
Brad
man.
Kearns, welcome back. Appreciate you taking the time, man.
Oh my gosh, what an honor, Dan. I'm so excited and we have such great conversations. We were talking offline about how you and I, we could easily freewheel it for an hour and that always comes out great. But you also got deep into this exciting new book, and so I appreciate all the things you threw back at me, and I think we have some really important points to discuss.
Hell yeah. So before we dive into the book, I had some background questions because I was curious, how many books have you written now?
Oh, geez, it's somewhere around 20. And interestingly, I've talked to people about writing a few times, like an audience of students or something, and they're asking for your secrets and your tips, and I'm like, you know what? I ain't giving anybody tips because I want you to go and do what works for you. And I remember when I was a young person and went to a seminar and learned from expert writers, and they would say, I get my mug of coffee and I sit by the window and I write for 4 straight hours without a break every single day, and then I go about my life. And you just get so intimidated about the concept or the idea of sitting down to write a book. But I think it's one of the list of bucket. It's one of the high bucket list items for people. Like a lot of people say they want to write a book someday. Sometimes it's their memoirs, like something that everybody should do is you write about your own life. But I think there's a lot of barriers to where, we feel intimidated or we don't have the skill set. And my thing that's worked for me is just sitting down and cranking stuff out, even if it's not good. The great writer Anne Lamott, she's written a string of best-selling books, and one of the chapters in her book Bird by Bird, which is about the writing process, is shitty first drafts. And she talks about how great it is just to write anything and hit send or hit print, and you've done something for yourself. So yeah, I've written a lot of books and losing count, and interestingly, a good handful of them have never been published, so no one's read them for whatever reason. You just kind of turned the corner and did something else with the material. So it's nice when people can actually read the book. And we're so excited about this new launch of 2 meals a day because we have a great publisher, and we're getting the word out. And I think it's something that's really timely because, especially for guys like us who live and breathe this stuff every day, there's a lot of controversy and confusion now about what healthy eating is. And we have voices shouting on the other sides of the aisle saying, no, you guys are full of beans. This is the true way to eat. And, we need to have a sustainable planet. So you can't eat any meat because that's a disaster and you're a disgrace and a pig. And, it's this back and forth that gets really confusing for the lay person. And as a matter of fact, I associate with normal everyday people like my childhood friends, and we're sitting around at a gathering and they're like, hey dude, what is going on with this? Have you heard of this Beyond Meat stuff? Is it really super healthy? And I'm like, cringing inside. But we've been hit with a lot of marketing hype and messaging that's trying to convince us. And we need to get back to basics. We need to do things that are simple and sustainable. So that's kind of the direction we took on this book, is to cut through the controversy and maybe even appeal to people with broad dietary interests. So if you insist upon going with this plant-based, eliminating animal foods, we're calling that out as a high-risk diet, right? Because you're putting aside many of the foods that are ranked as the most nutritious on earth. But you can do it if you do it carefully. And the other factors to come into play are like your lifestyle and your eating patterns themselves, like how often you're snacking and eating meals and mini meals. And so that's a big one. That's why 2 meals a day, obviously on the outset, we're talking about making the good food choices and also eating less frequently, because that's a huge health risk of this constant grazing and snacking.
For sure. And what I'm really excited about 2 meals a day is the way you guys are approaching it. It seems more like from a first principles standpoint. It's a little higher level. It's more kind of lifestyle focused, it seems, versus like you must do this and eat this. I really appreciate that. So
Yeah, it's kind of like in fitness where, you can get into a deep philosophical debate about whether free weights are superior to the machines or to resistance bands. And it's like, wait a second, here's what's superior. Getting your ass off the couch and into a workout situation, whether you're pulling the monkey ball on your door frame or joining a gym or walking down the street or going to the park and doing the parkour. So I don't care anything before we, get the proper starting point. And I think you can make an analogy to healthy eating too. And at the start of the book, we're saying, look, here's the first step: is you got to ditch the, uh, you know, nutrient deficient, toxic modern foods before we start talking about diet and macros and planning. You got to get the junk out of your diet or you don't pass go, and you might as well close the book or turn off this podcast or whatever before we can get those basic steps done.
For sure, for sure. And yourself and your co-author, the Sisson, the wild man Mark Sisson, you guys were kind of like you're early on in the paleo movement. He's kind of one of the godfathers of the paleo diet and that just whole paleo movement scene. What's been the evolution like from the paleo diet to the keto diet and then to now this concept of metabolic flexibility, which I love?
I guess the evolution is at some point in the early 2000s. The true forefathers and researchers, Dr. Boyd Eaton, Lauren Cordain, were publishing research about ancestral style eating patterns. Weston A. Price has been doing this for 100 years, Weston A. Price Foundation. And, so many people deserve credit for examining the idea that the evolutionary model of eating as well as living is something that we might want to pay attention to because we've, survived here for 2.5 million years. We've risen to the top of the food chain. We have strong brains, strong bodies, and then we're throwing a bunch of processed food down our throats and sitting around and using digital devices. So this idea of getting back to our ancestral roots with the way that we live our lives. And the paleo diet certainly kicked into gear over time. But I think the great thing that Mark did was come up with this primal blueprint concept, which not only was choosing the right foods aligned with our ancestral experience, but also plugging in all the different lifestyle factors that the attempt is to model the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of our ancestors, making all these allowances and adjustments for the realities of modern life. So, we're supposed to get adequate sleep every night. And for a couple million years, when it got dark, when the sun set, that's when the humans started to wind down. This metabolic process called dim light melatonin onset would kick into gear. And melatonin is the hormone that makes you feel sleepy and your eyes feel heavy and you want to, just slow down and go to sleep. So that happened on cue with the sunset for millions of years until the great Thomas Edison and everybody else that, Steve Jobs and Mr. Netflix and all the things that keep us up after dark now. And so that's a huge genetic disconnect that we face in modern life. So, one of the fundamentals of the Primal Blueprint, the 10 laws of the Primal Blueprint, the original book that was published in 2009, is get enough sleep by minimizing artificial light and digital stimulation, your Netflix queue and your emails and your personal device, minimize that stuff after dark so we can get back in touch with our extremely important circadian rhythm. And then you go into the exercise habits and all the things that we're kind of screwing up today, and just always honoring the genetic expectations for health. And so speaking of, the controversy and who's on this side of the coin and which type of exercise is better, is it cardio or strength training? If you go to that evolutionary model and realize what our hunter-gatherer ancestors did, I think it's a really it's a solid way to sort through the difference in scientific studies and conclusions. And one day you see a study that says this, and the next day you see something different. And I think anybody can kind of go and dig up and cite a study to advocate for whatever their personal opinion in, or the thing that they're pitching. And I think the evolutionary model trumps all. It's the most severe and prolonged scientific study in the history of the universe, right? And so if this is what our ancestors were like, it's probably something that's going to support your health rather than compromise it.
For sure, for sure.
So I didn't really answer your question, man, but so it started with this idea that we should eliminate nutrient deficient modern foods, which didn't exist in Paleolithic times. And I think the main highlight there was that this included grains. And for me, this was an eye opener back in 2008. Mark said, "Okay, here's the deal. Here's the diet you follow. You don't eat grains." at all. And I'm like, wait a second, we're born and raised on the standard American grain-based diet, and the healthy whole grains are the foundation of the food pyramid. So I always choose whole wheat bread instead of that nasty Wonder Bread, and I order brown rice at the restaurant instead of white rice. But this was tossing all those out and putting them in the same category, which is, high insulin stimulating foods that don't have much nutritional value in comparison to a truly nutritious food like an egg or a slice of liver or a steak or a can of sardines. And so, your whole wheat bread, your white bread, your rice, your cereal, all that stuff to kind of put that aside and then go looking for, the foods in the plant and the animal kingdom that nourished human evolution. That was the explosion of the paleo or the primal diet. And then keto came along in recent times. And it was kind of fun to be on the cutting edge of that, Dan, because Mark and I, we have great agents and publishers, and they're looking at the trends and they're saying, this keto thing might be the next dietary craze. And so, we had to go roll up our sleeves and learn about this whole deal and interview, some of the leading researchers looking at the work of Finney and Volek, who were early pioneers in the ketogenic diet. I talked to Dom D'Agostino for an hour on the phone, and he was a great interview and had so much knowledge. And of course, he's one of the leading scientists in the ketogenic realm. I remember from that interview, as an aside, he said, "I don't know," so many times that I finally got exasperated. I'm like, dude, that's your favorite answer. And, I know you're the top guy, but why do you keep saying, I don't know? And he goes, beware of any scientists that makes these sweeping conclusions. He goes, a truly good scientist will have that open mind and say, I don't know, more so than I know with certainty. And so I guess that's for the lay people out there that are, making these sweeping conclusions at their cocktail gathering about, what's the right way to train or eat. And I thought that was something that was really memorable. Is like, keep that open mind. And for me, it's been an amazing experience recently to see the rise of the carnivore diet, because some of the principles were flying in the face of these fixed and rigid beliefs that I'd personally formed, being, truly deep into this primal paleo ancestral living experience, where, the centerpiece of our diet, of course, is the healthy, nutritious, colorful plant life that you pile up on your plate. And that's how I ate in my own life. I had giant salads almost every single day. I'd go to the store and pick out all kinds of produce and make these giant stir fries and proudly serve them to my family that we were eating as healthy as could possibly be. And then these leaders like Dr. Paul Saladino, Dr. Sean Baker, listening to Amber O'Hearn or Michaela Peterson talk about, yeah, this plant food, we don't really need it to be healthy, and it quite possibly can be harming a great many people who are sensitive to the plant toxins. And I'm like, what the F you talking about? And then, I had to kind of put aside my fixed and rigid beliefs and be open-minded and be willing to experiment. And in fact, what's happened since I was first exposed to this carnivore premise in detail, listening to Ben Greenfield and Paul Saladino in, I believe, April of 2019, and the Epic podcast that kind of presented it, it got into my head and it hasn't left. And so I've made what I believe is a permanent shift in my dietary patterns to emphasize in, an animal emphasis diet, or a carnivore-ish diet, where my meals, the centerpiece, are these nutrient dense animal foods, especially the superfoods like the pastured eggs and the oily cold water fish and the organ meats. And I've put aside, I no longer go looking for produce and plant life in the name of health. So I haven't had a salad in 2 years because I lost my appetite for it as soon as I kind of opened my mind to the idea that there's some different perspective here that we really have to look deeply at and reflect and consider.
Sure, sure. I've heard, I was just listening to Matt Chan. He's a old kind of OG CrossFitter. He won the Titan Games recently. He's a Colorado guy, but I was listening to him talk about how, their nutrition advice, regardless of your nutritional philosophy, was protein first. Make protein the center of your plate. And then, looking at your blog and kind of what you've created as kind of how to base your meals, around the animal proteins. And I think a lot of people hear carnivore or carnivore-ish diet and they think like, oh my God, you're just eating ribeyes all day, every day. But that's certainly not it. You're including other things. You've kind of flipped the pyramid in a way, I guess.
Yeah, and here's the thing about restrictive diets. You're probably looking at the majority of benefits coming from what you don't eat rather than the magical powers of the ribeye or Sean Baker saying, "Hey man, I don't, I'm not even too worried about being selective. I go to Costco and see what's on sale and I buy my, my steaks and bring it home and cook them." But he's eliminating those plants that have caused all kinds of health problems, and so many people are sharing their stories of having an awakening and writing these nagging autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. So I think anyone listening who's suffering from a nagging condition that doesn't seem to go away would benefit from a restrictive diet. And this is even the case, I believe, for people who go into these, vegan style detox diets where they cut out all the processed food and they're having their wonderful kale salads and consuming the hummus with the whole wheat bread or whatever's going on. And again, over the long term, a huge risk to eliminate the most nutritious foods on the planet that have fueled human evolution. But in the short term, or for a select genetic uh, sliver of the population, maybe that's going to be a really wonderful health awakening because you're not consuming the junk, especially the number one, I think, on everyone's mind now, and it's finally coming into prominence, is the refined industrial seed oils. So this is, the worst thing that we can consume. It's extremely prevalent in the diet even today. Dr. Andrew Weil cites research that 20% of all calories consumed in the standard American diet come from soybean oil. Not all the other oils, that's a higher number, but just soybean oil is 1/5 of all the calories consumed by the average Joe who's not really paying attention, and all the things that are boxed, packaged, frozen. Dr. Kate Shanahan cites research that 40% of all calories coming from a restaurant meal come from refined industrial seed oils, because these are so calorically dense, and your meal, whatever it is that you ordered, your steak, your salmon, your broccoli, is being cooked in these offensive oils, your omelet, whatever it is. So it's really important to go to the restaurant with a very diligent mindset that you will ask them to cook the food in a saturated fat such as butter or anything besides their nasty oil blends. And I often ask the waitress, could you tell me what oil you use to cook? And they come back almost always and say, well, we use a blend. It's an olive oil blend. And I'm like, what the F is an olive oil blend? It's the word olive oil, which is regarded as a healthy food, cut down with a bunch of industrially manufactured oils. And even many of the olive oil that you find, especially like in a big box store, those giant jugs that are $9 or something, those are so old. They were processed so long ago. And instead of the ideal of a first cold press olive oil, which means you press the olive once, cold temperature, not warm temperature, and put it in the bottle. That's when it's really fresh and potent and has high antioxidants. But most of the olive oil out there has been cut down. They're allowed to say extra virgin olive oil on the bottle, even though it's not truly extra virgin. There's minimal regulation. And so you really got to watch out for your consumption of these industrial oils, we'll call them.
Sure, sure. That that was something I really wanted to ask you about is, do you know, like, why are they so ubiquitous? They're freaking everywhere, man. It's so I like Whole Foods, shame on you guys, man. It's in
Mm,
everything, right? Like,
yeah.
do you know
That
why
part's
that is?
tough. I mean, you get talking to an expert like Dr. Kate Shanahan. We have a good YouTube video. If you just type in Brad Kearns, Kate Shanahan, vegetable oil or something to that effect, it's a 15-minute breeze through the concept. But it's all about affordability. So these are, really inexpensive, and they prolong the shelf life of a packaged, boxed, frozen product. So that's the reason they throw them in there, is food manufacturing. I mean, we have kids at university today studying, I believe the major is called food science or something to that effect. And they're probably going to the chemistry lab to learn just how effective these high polyunsaturated industrial seed oils are for preserving shelf life. And oh, it's a disaster. And you talked about Whole Foods putting these organic canola oil still on the shelf there. There is a faction of the population that still argues that canola oil is healthy because it's derived from a high omega-3 rapeseed plant. But the problem is the manufacturing, the processing is so offensive that you have to use chemical solvents. You have to process these oils at high temperatures because they don't naturally yield a lot of oil. Unlike an olive, a coconut, an avocado, these are high fat plants that you can very easily extract oil without disturbing the nutritional integrity of the original plant. And then all the other oil categories, soybean, sunflower, cottonseed, these are all involving high chemical processes. And so it might have been something that had some omega-3 properties at the start. But there's so many other offensive agents and things going on there is that you're basically, to quote Dr. Kate, you're basically consuming radiation in a bottle when you consume industrial seed oil. It's that bad for the body. It has an instant disturbance to healthy cardiovascular function. There's one memorable study where they took some healthy young subjects, college students, the guys who are game for getting $60 to participate in a scientific study, and a single serving of French fries resulted in a disturbance to healthy arterial function. It kind of stiffened up and made their arteries less supple and flexible, and the blood flow a little bit diminished for around 24 hours.
Wow.
And they know from research that smoking a cigarette will disturb healthy cardiovascular function for around 8 hours. So the French fries had a more severe immediate disturbance to heart health than smoking a cigarette. That's not to say that you should swap French fries for cigarettes, but it's pretty shocking to realize how bad this stuff is and how much of it we've consumed over our lifetime. So anyone who ditches vegetable oils, go put a name on whatever crazy. I'm on the water balloon, watermelon, no vegetable oil diet, and I feel great. That's going to be largely the reason for it. And I guess, Dan, to be fair, that's probably the same for a lot of carnivore enthusiasts who are cutting out all plants for 30 days, noticing that there's no more gas, digestion, bloating, usual discomfort. And for me, I certainly noticed that everything just calmed down in terms of my digestion and elimination daily report. I don't need to go on details on your podcast here, but it was just a lack of fill in the blank, a lack of gas, bloating, elimination irregularities associated with hard workouts and things that I'd had my entire life. You go and do a hard run, you're going to have leaky pipes for the rest of the day. That's just what I thought was part of training. But in fact, it was some irritants that had left my diet and given me a noticeable improvement. Now, I make a nut butter. You said it was pretty good. You tried it. I
It's
eat a lot of that myself. I do not notice any adverse effects from consuming Brad's Macadamia Masterpiece. Therefore, I feel comfortable putting Brad on the label, jumping over the high jump bar and telling people, hey, this is a fantastic snack or dessert treat. And it's, filled with delicious, super healthy, unprocessed macadamia nuts, coconut butter, walnuts, pecans, to pause for a commercial in the middle of Dan's show. But I'm just making the point that, like, I know what works for me and I've tested. I also happen to enjoy dark chocolate and I eat a ton of it and I don't notice any adverse effects. But until the individual goes to the effort to do a restrictive diet and see what happens and see if you can get a health boost. And I love how Saladino pitches this too. I mean, he's the carnivore king, but he says, hey, it might not be for everybody a carnivore-ish pattern. He has a chapter in his new book to address people that want to, kind of dabble here and there and still enjoy their blueberries in the summertime. So you got to determine your own individual level of sensitivity. And I think his comment was like, we're talking about taking you from level 7 to level 9. And level 7's pretty good, but how do you know that there's a level 9 out there that might be much better? And that's absolutely the case for me. Like, I feel pretty good in general, but I'm always looking for an edge. I always want to have a little more energy. I want to recover faster. So I'm open-minded to trying anything that might, contribute to a goal of going from level 7 to level 9.
for sure, for sure. I had a thought I wanted to run by you about plants in particular. I wonder if, and I heard this from Kelly Stratton, Mark mentioned it on your guys' recent conversation about 2 meals a day, but it's like ask someone to name 15 vegetables, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
No,
That's
I
funny, huh?
oh yeah, it's like I was like, I don't think I could do that. But I wonder if it's not so much the vegetables as it is the lack of variety, right? Because I'm reading *Sapiens* for like the third time now, and he's talking about people foraging and that being kind of the mainstay of human life, essentially. And I wonder if it's not so much plants, the fact they're plants, but just this lack of going from 200 species or hundreds of species of plant material versus these like 10 or 15 that just happen to be able to that are, excuse me, easy to grow domestically. I just That's a thought I kind of
Yeah, I mean,
pondering on.
easy to grow and highly cultivated.
Hmm.
So the strawberry that you see in the big box store for sale in December is not the same as the one that Saladino's Instagram going around. He spent 3 weeks with the Hadza with Anthony Gustin, perfect keto guy, and they're eating wild tubers and whatever random things that have been unadulterated. And so we're eating entirely adulterated food unless you pull over on the side of the road on vacation in Oregon in the summer and pick some blackberries out in the middle of nowhere. Those are wild blackberries, but yeah, the cultivation and the streamlining of the products. Talk about conventional produce with all the pesticides and chemicals on there. Yeah, that's a big difference from the ancestral experience. And so, again, it's like, try things out and maybe uh, a, a diet with less variety might be something that works for you. I'm of the mind that same with fitness. I do the same thing every morning with my morning exercise, mobility, flexibility, core strengthening, leg strengthening routine. I like the idea that I'm doing the same exact thing because it gives this pattern of consistency. It's now been formed into a habit. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to use willpower or creativity. If I go to the track and do a workout, I might mix it up every time a little bit and introduce some new things that I see and enjoy that creativity and that flexibility. But there's also a vote to saying, hey, look, if you like to eat the same thing every morning, there's a lot of family stories about the grandfather that lived to be 103 and he had 2 eggs, one bacon, black coffee, and a sugar cube on his way out the door, and that worked for him. So, this constant quest for variety, even that, there's no black and white here. It might be better to streamline your diet.
Sure, sure, absolutely. I wanted to ask specifically, you talked deep on industrial seed oils, but how do those specifically affect fat metabolism, fat metabolism, excuse me, negatively?
So these molecules are similar to the fat that's in our cells. And so the body gets confused and integrates the refined industrial seed oil into the cell membrane. And so they become difficult to burn off because they're a chemically altered agent. Dr. Kate says that people with cellulite, trouble areas where they are losing weight, they're getting fitter, they're getting leaner, but they still have a flabby area on their body that's so frustrating. Part of that is because this is the housing of these chemical oils, and people who go on extreme fat loss diets. What happens sometimes they have like a toxic reaction because the cells, the material is being dumped into the bloodstream, and so you're getting toxin from the inside out, right? So you have to kind of slow down your rate of fat loss because all this crap is getting dumped into your bloodstream that's been stored. So I believe that's a basic description of what's going on as this gets integrated into healthy fat cells. And then here's where the problem occurs is that when you experience dysfunctional fat metabolism, what are you going to do? You know, you're supposed to go on this diet and go keto and cut your carbs out, or try fasting or only eating 2 meals a day, like we're talking about. But if you're not good at burning body fat, you got big problems ahead because you're not going to have any energy. You're going to feel like hell. And you're going to, when you have low energy, the human knows how to crave quick energy, and you get directed to go find the nearest dose of sugar. And so you're going to be you're going to be trending back in the direction of carbohydrate dependency if you have dysfunctional fat metabolism. And the industrial seed oils are a huge contributor to dysfunctional fat metabolism, thereby promoting insulin resistance because the human is compelled to get their energy from dietary carbohydrates in the absence of being able to burn stored body fat. So, sugar's a tough one too. A grain-based diet is a tough one. But Ben Greenfield was ranking, and he said, the seed oils are the worst, and sugar's behind because at least you can go and burn off sugar when you grab the monkey ball and do a 12-minute power session. You burned off whatever you just ate. And in fact, I think that's an interesting idea. Like if you're going to have dessert one time and you decide to go for that scoop of ice cream or slice of cheesecake or whatever, go bust out a workout or at least walk around the block. There's research showing that even a really slow walk around the block of like 15 minutes at, I believe, a pace of 1 mile per hour or 2 miles per hour, just nothing, just kind of taking a stroll, mutes the insulin response after a meal by 50%.
Wow.
So we can certainly process carbohydrates effectively when we have an active, high movement and energy expenditure lifestyle. But the seed oils is a different story. You're ingesting, radiation, chemicals.
Well, it's just again, they're so ubiquitous, man. It's like I wonder how much of a factor those are into this kind of just chronic metabolic disease pandemic, I guess we're going through in a way. But this is a great segue into metabolic flexibility. So, can you just talk about what that is and how do you achieve metabolic flexibility?
Yeah, the term just implies that you are skilled at or making and burning a variety of fuel sources based on your needs at any particular time. And so maybe one of those skills is, like I mentioned, the slice of cheesecake. My birthday was last month, and I had a slice of cheesecake, and it was so good. Obviously, because this stuff's not really hanging around my diet very much, so I had another slice of cheesecake on my birthday. That was my right. I was the birthday boy, right? And I was able to, process those calories, not pass out in a diabetic coma, because my body has this attribute of metabolic flexibility. So I can even handle a carb slam. I can also handle a 24-hour fast, which I do on occasion, because in this example, my body is making ketones in the liver, right? If I'm not ingesting glucose, my brain still needs fuel throughout the day. And so I have the flexibility to switch from whatever glucose maybe is hanging around in my diet, or maybe I've burned through it after a few hours, and now I switch over to ketones or going to stored body fat. So the biggest attribute of metabolic flexibility is the ability to make stored body fat your primary energy source. So you can thrive, you can feel great, you can work out hard, you can go long, even in the absence of regular meals and obsessive feedings and refeedings in the case of the athletic realm, where we have to rush home to make our protein smoothie after a hard workout. And so I guess that's the essence of metabolic flexibility, is you can do whatever's needed to keep you steady and energetic and balanced mood, balanced appetite, great cognitive function all day long, whether or not you eat regular meals.
Right, right. And does like for me in particular, I was skipping breakfast for a long time and I realized because we eat dinner early, like we'll eat, I have two young girls, two young daughters, and we'll eat between 5 and 6. And then I wasn't eating again until sometimes noon or 1. But I realized like that's way too long for me. And even just the 12-hour was pretty good if you go 5 to 5. And if I was eating even at 10, that's like, I was getting a solid 14, 16 hours in. So I definitely, I think I was doing it a little bit too much. So one thing I've been experimenting with a little bit is having just kind of a fat, like a bulletproof coffee type of thing, just kind of maintain that fat burning process and then eating more of that proper meal, kind of late morning type of thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's been really effective.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I'm really interested in this right now, and that's the idea that if you have good metabolic health, you're athletic, you got the Dan six pack, or maybe close to, no one's quite got the Dan six pack, but you exhibit signs of good metabolic health, right?
Mm.
So we know that fasting is a stressor to the body. We know that intense exercise is a stressor to the body. And these are positive stressors in general, right? Unless you tempt loading up too many stressors and possibly suffering some negative consequences. And in my case, I have almost the Dan six pack. I have good athletic form. I have good metabolic health. My blood work looks good, right? But I'm also in the higher age group of 55 plus now, man. So I'm going out there. I'm trying to do these intense sprint workouts in the older age division, and I'm enjoying my fasting, and I'm not super hungry in the morning. I don't need breakfast. I can go and go, and I feel great. That may be very well true. But I'm starting to realize now, especially talking to Rob Wolf, who made this point wonderfully, that if you have that good metabolic health, nutritious food can be a real boost to
Right.
your performance, your ability to recover, your ability to sustain energy rather than conserve energy after these periods of fasting and working out hard. And we know the body does that. We have all kinds of compensatory mechanisms in place to kind of cool us out if we're pushing things too hard, not eating enough food, training too hard. Dr. Tommy Wood is a great leader on this. I had a couple shows with him on the B.RAD podcast, which I thought were the best big picture overview of healthy eating and metabolic health and athletics for some, like maybe a new listener would go and get so much value out of that. But he said with his athletes that he counsels, he wants them to eat as much nutritious food as they can until they gain 1 pound of fat. And then you can dial it back. And that's where that's your healthy limit there. You don't want to be gaining fat because you're stuffing your face so much. But if you're an athlete, you have heightened nutritional needs from the guy next door who, walks his dog around the block and gets in a car and drives all day. Rob Wolf's quote, one liner on this topic was, hey, if you want to live longer, lift more weights and eat more protein. And it's like, wow,
Love it.
man,
Love it.
you gotta eat more protein if you're gonna lift more weights and try to survive that regimen. And so, everyone's in a different category. And if you have excess body fat and you're struggling to get it off and you're frustrated, of course, your most sure path there is going to be reducing the insulin production in your diet. And there's two main ways of doing that. One of them is to eat less frequently and get better at fasting, and the other one is to cut out the refined carbohydrates, the grains, and the sugars. But there's an important qualifier there, and that is you cannot pursue a fat reduction goal until you're metabolically healthy. And so the cutting of calories in the attempt to lose weight and the increasing of exercise in conjunction with cutting calories to lose weight, it's now being revealed by emerging science that it simply doesn't work. And it's pretty mind blowing because we've been socialized to think this calories in, calories out is everything. And oh, here's 2021. I'm going to get to the gym more and do an extra workout because I need to drop some excess weight. And I'm not going to have such a big portion size at my meals. I'm going to watch that a little bit. And what happens when you do that is your body adjusts to the new level of caloric intake or the new level of exercise output by being lazier and conserving energy and burning fewer calories and keeping you locked at your metabolic and your body composition set point. So now we're kind of our minds are blown. It's like, well, how do I really do it then if cutting calories and working out more doesn't work?
For sure. For sure. You're making me think of I talked to Logan Schwartz. I heard him on your show on the Primal Endurance actually. Um, and he was talking about how biology always trends towards efficiency.
Mm.
And listening to you and Mark talking, I was like, oh, it makes total sense. As you get fitter, what's happening in a way is you're becoming more efficient. So you can either do more work or the same amount of work with a lower energy requirement. And I can see how when you combine that with the calorie restriction, it's just a recalibrating across. So you're not going to lose weight that way. And what I'm hearing you say with the metabolic flexibility is essentially you're using the 2 meals a day and the fasting protocol is kind of like this training regimen to get your body in shape to burn fat as fuel. And then once you've kind of done that, you can start to be a little more flexible. Is that a pretty concise summary?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think we all need to um, appreciate an eating pattern that's flexible and feels good and feels comfortable and easy to sustain, because anything can work in the short term. You can turn on the TV show and see the biggest losers dropping all this weight. But you know, the the worst kept secret is after the camera light goes off, the attrition rate is massive. I mean, the attrition rate of all diets is known to be 97%. And there was a study out of UCLA saying this is grossly underestimated because they're not counting the people that dropped out of the study. So it's 97% of the people that stick around to admit that they gained their weight back, but they're still in the study. And the rest of them are like, oh, screw this. I'm blown it and I drop out. So, we have to awaken to new possibilities here. And one of them is, for the athletic types, lifting more weights, eating more protein, not fasting for such a long period of time if you're doing those wonderful exercise regimen that you're into, and taking that personal aspect, but again, getting healthy first before trying to drop excess body fat is a big one. And we see all kinds of weird stuff happening. One of them is the tendency to over exercise and over stress yourself in the name of fitness. And what happens in those cases with this chronic overproduction of stress hormones is that your body is going to be triggered with genetic survival mechanisms to hold on to body fat as a survival instinct and burn through lean muscle mass when you're overtraining, and also spike appetite, especially for carbohydrates. So you're going to be kind of training your body for carbohydrate dependency rather than this lauded, glorified state of being an excellent fat burner or developing metabolic flexibility. So metabolic flexibility is a lot dependent on your dietary choices, but also your exercise patterns and your movement patterns.
You've mentioned Rob Wolf a few times now, and he's another guy that, he's ready to admit, he'll say, I don't know all the time. And I love listening to him. Someone, especially in a scientist that's willing to say that, I just, it's such a far and few situation these days. I really love hearing people say that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Dan. Um, I interviewed Rob Wolf and Saladino back to back, and those two guys, of anybody I've heard, they are the straightest shooters, and they will call out bullshit with no hesitation and no sugarcoating. And it's so refreshing to me. And I had my friend Dave Rossi, a popular podcast guest. He's a spiritual author. He interviewed me, turned the tables, turned the microphone around, and he asked me questions for my audience to listen to. It's kind of a fun show. And one of them was, what are you still hiding from the audience, or what do they really don't know about Brad Kearns? And the question kind of stumped me. And I realized that, we're here in a public forum and we're putting on a show. It's not, I'm not completely authentic. I'm not whining about whatever happened to me this morning before we hit record. I'm here with enthusiasm and energy and having a great conversation. But at times I realized I was kind of withholding in the interest of avoiding conflict or being polite and conciliatory. Times when I smelled bullshit and I just kind of let it, ooze right through the airwaves, because I didn't want to get into it, because I wanted to respect my guests and their point of view.
Right.
And after listening to Saladino and Rob Wolf go off, I mean, they're doing a great service to the planet by saying, "Oh no, the Esselstyn's their research is a bunch of bullshit. It's not valid." And I was just trying to make like an olive branch to my main man, my buddy Rip Esselstyn, who's doing a lot of good work, and he's in the whole food plant-based kingdom
Right.
with his Engine 2 brand. But he's, a positive, enthusiastic guy, and he's living a healthy lifestyle. And I love what he's doing, and I love his approach. We have a huge difference of opinion on what constitutes a healthy diet, and that's okay to say. But to slam the door on the stuff that just doesn't feel right, boy, that's what advances culture more than anything. And so I vow to be kind of more honest and direct in the way that I conduct myself as an interviewer or as a guest in this case. And it's kind of a good goal for me, because in real life I'm sort of non-confrontational, rather than the guy on the side of the road who's going to roll his window down and say, "Hey, mofo, what's your problem? You want some action right now?" No, that's not me. I'm like, "My bad, sorry."
For sure.
Yeah, I'm the guy who's never going to get in a fight on the road.
Well, that's we need more people like that. One one thing I wanted to ask about fasting is, I think there's like with fitness and training and nutrition, you can really dive in hard, right? My concern is with fasting, if someone's super motivated, a really intense fitness health enthusiast, they could take fasting to, kind of a dangerous extreme. Do you have any thoughts or advice for someone that's maybe wants to explore fasting, but to make sure they don't go off that deep end?
Yeah, good one. Thanks for bringing that up. And we have a nice section in the book about that. I believe the subhead is called "Liquidating Your Assets," and that's a quote from Dr. Tommy Wood. And he says, if you're not metabolically healthy, you're not prepared for a dietary transformation like aggressive fasting or carb restriction. What you're going to do is you're going to liquidate your assets to get the energy you need to function throughout the day. And in the case of ill-prepared fasting, you're going to stimulate the fight or flight response and the process of gluconeogenesis, which is the conversion of lean muscle mass into glucose. So you're going to get your glucose needs met because your brain has a ravenous appetite for calories and it can burn only glucose, a little bit of other things like lactate, and of course it can burn a lot of ketones if you happen to be able to make those ketones through pretty devoted effort. But mainly your brain is a sugar machine and it needs that sugar all day long. It burns 20% of all the calories in the body. For me, it's 23% because my brain's bigger than. I'm just kidding. But you know,
Oh,
you if you haven't done the hard work to get fat adapted, to get good at burning body fat, eliminating those seed oils and kind of turning those engines on and being patient and doing a lot of walking and moving around rather than sitting, because these are all things that contribute to fat burning, sleeping well rather than compromising sleep. If you haven't done that hard work, you're just going to elicit a stress response and you're going to be bathed in glucose that the stress hormones are, prompting these processes. And so what happens there is you go on a crash diet. Now you're fasting 18 hours a day. I'm on the 18-6 pattern. You feel great for about 3 weeks because you're wired on fumes. And I think we can all reference times of great personal crisis in life. Someone's on their deathbed, whatever, you're going to the hospital every day. You're not even hungry. You wake up at 6 a.m. wide awake because it's such a tough time. And your body is pumping stress hormones into your bloodstream to get through these traumatic periods of life. You don't need food. You're not hungry. Your hands are shaking already. And so that's an example of the stress response in high gear. So on these crash diets, you're going to feel great for a certain period of time. And then you're going to crash and burn and have this huge compensatory response where all you want to do is sit around and eat because you're trying to recover from this fight or flight, life or death battle that you enacted inappropriately. And so to be prepared and to enter into this realm of fasting gently and gracefully, that is the big deal here. You might have heard the term keto flu. The listeners might be familiar, and it's kind of a thing you can Google as part of the ketogenic diet. And people say, "Don't worry, hang in there. It lasts for a couple of few weeks, and you really feel terrible. But when you get through it, then it's going to be great." And I'm calling bullshit on that right now. Speaking of bullshit, because if you're doing a dietary transition that feels like hell, something's wrong with your approach. Luis Villasenor, Keto Gains, he says a lot of people, they cut their sodium too much when they clean up their diet because they get rid of all those high sodium, nasty processed foods, but they have an increased need for sodium. And when your sodium is down, you're going to get the keto flu. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to have the afternoon blues. You're going to crave sugar. All these things, all that could be needed is, a few extra shakes of salt every time you consume a beverage. So these are the things to watch out for. We want people to feel great all the way through, all the way along. And when it comes to fasting, you can, proceed with this WHEN strategy, WHEN. It stands for when hunger ensues naturally. So let's say you're going to try to delay your first meal of the day until you actually get hungry, rather than just habitually slamming some food down your throat because the sun's up. And that's probably a good strategy for everybody. But guess what? Some people might experience hunger symptoms at 9 in the morning. So go ahead and sit down and have a delicious meal. when I first transitioned over from my, basically what I thought was a healthy diet, but it was a ton of carbohydrates and a grain-based diet for sure. I had this giant cereal bowl every single morning, the athlete's pig trough. And I had this dating back to my triathlon days where I'd have 4 different kinds of cereal and huge scoops of non-fat yogurt and fresh fruit and maybe some honey drizzled along with slices of bananas and a big thing of soy milk. And I'd just have this huge carbohydrate bomb every morning. But when I transitioned over to eating primally, when I started working with Mark in 2008, I traded the cereal bowl in for a gigantic omelet where I used 6 eggs, sauteed a bunch of vegetables, big slices of avocado, salsa, melted cheese, bacon, and I'd have this giant beast that barely fit on a plate. And I had that every single morning for quite a long time because I was, still needing this energy in the morning. I'd been so accustomed to having that huge bowl of cereal, but this wasn't giving me that huge carbohydrate spike, and I was able to sustain my energy burning through the omelet in the morning hours, and it felt great. And then maybe it was a year down the line. I mean, it was plenty of time under my belt. I finally realized one day that, I wasn't really hungry for that omelet right away, first thing in the morning. So I could kind of take that stair step to the next phase of my metabolic adaptation, my ability to become more and more metabolically flexible and not be beholden to this huge, gigantic dose of good energy in the morning. And that's, it has to happen naturally, has to feel comfortable. Mark Sisson talks about this a lot, where it's like, you know what? I just forgot to eat this afternoon because I was so busy working or playing frisbee or having fun. And that's what we want people to get to, is that sensation of, not being obsessed or attached to anything really. I mean, attachment leads to suffering, right? The Buddhist mantra. And so metabolic flexibility really means that you can take it or leave it, but it's all natural and graceful. And when you're hungry, we strongly recommend going and getting something to eat until you want to go into the advanced strategies. And then we want you to work through a little bit of hunger here and there, because guess what? You're going to survive. And that's when you're really going to kickstart accelerated fat burning if you're trying to go from good to great, for example.
Sure. And what I really like about what you guys are doing, and kind of what you guys have always done really, is it's all about this lifestyle. It's all about a lifestyle versus a diet. And even though diets in the title sometimes, whatever, it really ultimately is a lifestyle. And 2 meals a day seems like that more than anything. And it reminds me of, I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, excuse me.
Mhm.
But he talks about kind of creating this avatar of the person that you want to be and kind of using that as a reference point. I think, for the listeners, for the monkeys, it's like if you want to be metabolically flexible, that's the type of person you want to be. And then you can kind of reverse engineer strategies to become metabolically flexible. So I really like that.
Oh man, I love that concept. I think I have that on my audio book list. I've listened to a little bit of it, but I'm becoming more and more interested in these. I guess you'd call it the personal growth realm and the
Sure.
messages that people like Jack Canfield. We talked about him offline. That he's got some props in the book, and some of the content that's out there nowadays. I think it's really important to pay attention to, especially the ability for you to take control of your thoughts and have that manifest your reality and your future, and to kind of work really hard at destroying and reframing self-limiting beliefs that are holding you back. And I've had some experts on my show, and I've read a lot, people like Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, and experts in psychology like Dr. Wendy Walsh saying, we form these notions in childhood when we're an open sponge and we're taking in all kinds of information and forming our self-esteem for the first time, and then we carry them with us throughout the rest of our life. And the bad stuff especially can be really harmful if we fail to acknowledge it, or don't unwind these things, and we find ourselves repeating the same patterns over and over. And one of them is like failed weight loss dietary transformation efforts, or failed fitness goals. And why has this happened 4 or 5 times in a row? I think probably the main one is a flawed approach. And so now we're learning the technology that, you don't starve yourself and exercise to exhaustion when you're trying to drop excess body fat. You have to do it right. But I think deep down, when we're scarred from these failures, we start to form these protective beliefs that are holding us back. And so the way you just conveyed that, of like envisioning that person you want to be, maybe you're not that person right now, but if you can form that vision and do a vision board and a mind movie like Joe Dispenza talks about. And I've been a guy that, kind of pushed this stuff off to the side because I was too busy to worry about it. And by the way, I'm already been successful. I was the number 3 ranked triathlete in the world. So I had my shit together, but I didn't realize these loose ends that were around and these behavior patterns that were locked in these places in my life where I was, had shortcomings and was not the person that I wanted to be. To take a look at those and envision a different possibility where I didn't have to be stuck in this rut the rest of my life. That's been really helpful for me. So I made myself a little mind movie and I watch it. I watch it every day. At first, it was 2 minutes long, and I was like, all right, all right. I've already seen all these pictures of wonderful. There I am with my family on the beach in Hawaii. There I am with my old dog enjoying yet another workout because she's 13 years old. She's not going to be around forever, and that's a top priority. So I sped it up. I put it on high speed, so now it takes like 20 seconds, but it's going into my brain every single day. And so I'm really a new fan of things like the mind movie or the vision board.
Okay. And what I heard you mention this turnaround statement concept. Is that kind of what you just described, or is that a separate idea? The
Yeah,
turnaround.
so that's Jack Canfield's concept.
Okay.
And what he suggests is that we identify these flawed and dated and no longer self-serving beliefs, these negative beliefs. And so you call it into prominence, and then you create a turnaround statement like, I'm capable of adhering to a sensible exercise program even though I feel like whatever you brought to the table, like I've failed so many times, I've just kind of giving up, and I guess I'm not a fitness person. Whatever that mouth is doing, you create a turnaround statement saying, I'm open. When I was competing, I used to get treated with this really advanced holistic healer named Dr. Mike Greenberg in Atlanta. Look him up, people, if you're out there. But he does this practice called neuro emotional anti-sabotage technique, NEAT. And this is where your stored emotional memories may be hampering your present day physical performance. So, as an athlete, I was very interested in breaking through, and I'd have things like fear of the crazy ass swim start where people are slamming you in the head with their fist and you're getting pulled underwater and you have to catch your breath and all that. And so, I'd create these turnaround statements like, um, you know, I am aggressive and confident at the start of the swim, and I will fight for my position, and no one will take it away from me, that kind of thing. And so, just by saying stuff out loud, it has a huge positive impact. And there's so much research behind this. And by the way, if you think this stuff is nonsense, you're absolutely correct. It's total nonsense because you believe it to be so. If you are open to the possibility that doing things like a turnaround statement can help you, then you're going to be absolutely right. And they're going to help you tremendously. It's all up to you. And I can waste more breath if you want, but just to put that message out there that, like, hey, people, open up your minds. You're in control. You're the one in control of your thoughts and beliefs. And it can be, really powerful. And I also want to say, Dan, like there's somewhat of an overdose on this these days. And so the one thing I don't want people to feel like is like feeling inferior or that you're left behind because you're not a super duper badass with you don't have your mind movie going right now and you haven't manifested a million zillion dollars like the person talking how they created a business. They dreamed of it and then they dreamed of it so hard that it came true the next day. So we don't want to go overboard into that place where you can sort of feel resistant to it or negative about it, but
Right.
just taking these little baby steps and being open to improvement and progress and feeling better and breaking through ruts and bad patterns. That's the kind of thing that can be fun for everybody. And you don't have to compare yourself to the Instagram influencer who manifested their Ferrari and all the rest of that bullshit.
It totally reminds me of Jordan Peterson's stand up straight with your shoulders back. Just
Mm,
create this
love it. Yeah.
physical sensation, and it just kind of starts as a foundation you can build off of. So it makes
Yep.
total sense. And 2 meals a day, it's not just about nutrition, it's not just about diet. It's, again, it's lifestyle. And I've heard you talk about this for years now, but where did the idea that we need to suffer to get results originate? And why the hell do we still believe that today?
Yeah, man. What the hell is that all about? I don't know. It could date back to 1976, Rocky. I mean, what a great movie, you know?
Sure.
And aroused emotion in all of us and won Best Picture. And boy, that guy, he worked hard for his shot at the title. But I do have some reflections on the fitness culture because so much of it's wonderful. What you've done with your business and building the tribe of monkeys and making fitness accessible and focusing on the right things. There's so many great things happening, but there's also this prevailing approach of glorifying struggling and suffering and torturing yourself to pursue superficial results, like the model with the six pack who's advertising to order your Peloton bike, and you see the workout happening, and the person's dripping sweat, and then they high five the person next to them because they did such amazing work. And sure, once in a while, pushing your body to your absolute physical limit is a tremendous growth experience. And I mean, look at me. I was a professional triathlete for 9 years. It was the centerpiece of my life. And putting myself under that kind of pressure and that kind of challenge and having that compelling goal was wonderful. Um, it's not a good match for decades of living. It's a phase that we go through usually when we're younger. But I think I still pull from that experience, and I have the attempt here to live my life on the edge all the time, where I always have a compelling competitive goal, and I'm really serious about it, and I really want to perform well, and I want to do it right. And it's a wonderful way to kind of piece together all the other mundane parts of life, or the things where you can't really unleash your competitive intensity every single day, every hour. But to have that in the proper perspective is really important, and to realize that there's a right way to challenge yourself, and then there's a way that's a disaster. Roger Bannister, the sub 4 minute miler, the late Sir Roger Bannister, he wrote a wonderful book when he was still in his 20s, just retiring from running when he broke the first sub 4 minute mile. And he said, "Struggle gives meaning and richness to life." And it's a wonderful quote because without struggle, life is boring and too easy and too comfortable. And I think we all can dip our toe in that type of lifestyle where, geez, so you went to Hawaii and you laid on the beach for 9 days. Well, maybe you were ready to go home after 6 days of laying on the beach, or maybe on day 7 you wanted to go hike up the nearby trail to the rainforest. You got to do something with life, otherwise it's kind of boring. But I think the quote to me, I really want to emphasize that you have to have that struggle in the proper context. So struggling to the starting line because you paid your registration money to run the Boulder, but your temperature is 102 Fahrenheit and you don't want to miss the race because there's no refunds. That's not the struggle we're talking about. We're talking about the struggle of putting yourself out there and preparing carefully for a peak performance effort. And I love your story. I want listeners to go listen to our interview on the B.RAD podcast about your journey through the NCAA athletic experience, where you struggled royally. You were not a selected person. You were not a scholarship athlete. You went out there, you took a beating, and you came back every day with a smile on your face. And that gave such meaning and richness to your life. And of course, came out well. It always does come out well. But you have to have that in the proper context. You weren't going out there, undertrained, wanting to get your ass kicked by a Division I scholarship athlete. You were the guy that was, looking for every advantage and fighting really hard. So there's a huge difference there. And, this mentality that, to answer your question, which sometimes I'm not good at, but, where'd this come from? I think it's the marketing forces in the fitness scene. They want to sell instant gratification. They want to sell, this immediate return on investment value. Let's say with a personal trainer, I'm going to pay some guy $50 to work out with me. Well, guess what? He's going to earn his money because he's going to be like my cheerleader and my, come on, 3 more, you can do it, and high five and make me feel good in the moment, in the context. And that is one of the many roles of a trainer, is to keep you motivated and focused. But in the big picture, maybe that trainer, the best trainer, is going to be meeting you one day and saying, "Hey, man, you look tired. You don't seem right. Is everything okay? Why don't we just take a walk instead of hit the weights this day?" And that's not as much value for your $50 as the guy in there, exhorting you to do a few more reps. And so I think we need to back off from, the glorification of suffering in the name of selling fitness product, and instead, look deeper into what a fitness experience can really be all about.
Sure. It's like there's the perceived value of something that's hard is higher value, versus you can do some smart training is, oftentimes not necessarily hard, but it's more tactical. It's smart. And Logan Schwartz talked about it as well. He had this kind of like Socratic method of how he worked with clients and approached training and all that. So it's fascinating how the fitness industry, it's like the marketing teams have superseded science as far as
Yeah.
what we should be doing. So
Oh my gosh. I mean, I had to learn this as hard, the hardest way you can possibly imagine. And that was through my journey as a professional triathlete. I started as a very young guy. I was 21. I was on the pro circuit. I was traveling around the world all of a sudden. And I was so focused and competitive and dedicated. I would do whatever it took to succeed in this sport that I love so much. And I had so much energy and competitive intensity. And every day I was willing to bring it on. And I got a few years down the line and I realized, look, I was dedicating my entire life to the sport. I was sleeping half of my life. I was sleeping 12 hours every day, 10 hours at night, 2-hour afternoon nap every day without fail. And so every ounce of energy, my life was completely set up to compete on the pro circuit and train and eat and sleep and not waste energy on many other things. And so I got a few years down the road and I realized that there were still dudes ahead of me on the race course. And I'm like, well, this ain't fair. This sucks. Mike Pig is still kicking my ass. Mark Allen is still kicking my ass, but I'm training as hard as humanly possible. I have a lot of athletic talent and genetic aptitude for this sport. Why are these guys still beating me? I can't train any harder. And so I had a great conversation with Mark Allen halfway through my career. And I said, dude, what's going on? You know, how can you kick my ass so badly when all I do is wake up every day and I train and eat and sleep? And he says, you got to slow down. You got to take care of your body. You got to monitor your heart rate. This was in the late 80s when heart rate training first came to be. And we had this realization that if you strap this thing on your chest and look at the number is going to help you regulate that competitive intensity on a day after day after day basis so that you can unleash it on race day instead of unleashing it on this poor sucker on the bike path who passed you wearing sneakers and you're a pro and you don't want some guy wearing sneakers to pass you. So you catch back up to him, even though it's your easy recovery day. And there goes, you just blew your recovery day because of your ego. So I had to learn those lessons the hard way that slowing down is actually the gateway to being a better athlete and to, regulating that ego and that competitive intensity and, being human about it, being intuitive, reasoning with your instincts rather than just being an animal and chasing until you drop. I watch my dog do that. My dog's amazing. I mean, the dog's exhausted. We go on a 4-hour hike, and then there's a squirrel down the trail 50 meters, and the dog takes off like a shot when, any human would be like, I'm exhausted. I can't move my hip flexors anymore. But the dog can bring it until they collapse and lie around for, 2 days at the home.
you've I've been listening to you for, gosh, it's probably been 3 or 4 years now at least. But listening to you, I've heard your story, and you've kind of, from what I can ascertain, you've had this journey of, you were a hardcore professional athlete, and it was like physicality first, physical training first, and then you kind of added on the nutrition on top of that. Now you're adding on this more mental side. What are your thoughts on basically limiting or kind of developing an information diet as far as what inputs you let into your mind?
Oh man, good question. Thanks. This is like my biggest concern these days, and my biggest number one primary health concern really is this hyperconnectivity, this constant potential for distractibility and losing focus on the highest expression of your talents and your core daily responsibilities. And so I talk a lot about my cold exposure regimen. I jump in the chest freezer and I'm devoted to my exercise morning routine and everything's great and I'm so disciplined. And then I'm still fighting the battle and the email inbox is distracting me from the book project that I'm working on now. And so I'm admitting to it. I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm trying so hard to turn it around, but it's a constant battle. And, the further we advance with technology, It's wonderful. I love Google Maps when I'm trying to get somewhere because I remember the old days. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but whipping out those accordion maps in your car and pulling over on the side of the road and going, "Holy crap, I don't know where this place is." There's so many great benefits of modern times and the exchange of information, but now we're compelled to exercise extreme discipline like never before, no other time before in human history, and it's all on us, and we're fighting a royal battle again against those marketing forces, just like with the suffering ethos in the fitness industry. Now we have the great leaders of the digital revolution, and some of the smartest minds on the planet are trying to gain our attention and their audience share. So if you go on the big social media platforms, they have deliberate attempts to engage more of your attention and keep you on there longer, because that's how they make money. And they're smart and they're clever, and they cater to the dopamine triggers of the brain, which is the strongest human drive. And so just acknowledging it, being aware of it, and then putting into place rules and guidelines that set you up for success. You mentioned Kelly Starrett. I think people know who he is. He's the author of many great books, including Becoming a Supple Leopard. He's the founder of the Ready State and one of the leading trainers and mobility rehabilitation experts in the world. And when I did a podcast with him, he spent more time talking about these weird little tidbit advice, because that was the most prominent thing on his mind. He wasn't talking about your squat competency. He was telling me, look, you got to plug your iPhone out in the hall, not in the bedroom, in the hall, so you won't be tempted. And if you have kids, guess what we do? We drive our car a mile away from the school and walk it in every day, so we can give a walking experience to our kids. Some people saying, well, we live too far from school, our kids, we have to drive there. And it's like, okay, fine, we'll drive a mile away and then do your thing there. And that was a more prominent interest to him than his core area of expertise of teaching you how to do a correct squat. And I thought it was really beautiful to kind of get a glimpse into one of the thought leaders saying, hey, you know what, this stuff is connected, strongly connected to your performance in the gym, because if you're up late at night working on your phone, you're not going to be recovering from the awesome workout you did.
Yeah, it's been so fascinating to me how it was so, again, like physically focused in the sense of like, how's your snatch technique? What are your running intervals look like? All that stuff. And then, guys like Kelly, they're taking this step back to the first principles where it's like, well, are you walking 12,000 steps a day? Are you eating properly? Are you getting good sleep? It's really been eye-opening to me. And, I have two daughters, one's 10 months and one's 2.5 years. And it's like, I think as a parent, you really get hit with that hard. And you realize how having that solid foundation is so important, especially as you get older as well.
Yeah, and the kids today, I mean, my heart goes out to them because they're living in the digital world entirely. And at least me, people my age, and for to some extent your age, we had a portion of our lives that was free from the mobile device. And so, with my kids now, they're 23 and 21, but I fought that battle early on, and they wanted to get video games when they were 10 years old. I go, guess what? Go to your friend's house. I can't control what's there. You can go play there, but we ain't never getting that shit in this house. And I caved in when they were 13 or whatever. And the Wii came out for Christmas with the Wii board and the snowboarding challenge. Oh my God, that stuff was so fun, but we have to fight that battle, especially and setting example for our kids. And I had a show with Andre Obradovic. He's a Australian health and
Great photo.
fitness coach, and he was remembering a period of time when he was a career freak. He was a executive at Cisco, and you can read about it on his website about how he bombed out and crashed and burned in his life and had a breakdown and a change in his career and his life path. But he was so focused on work for those years that he kind of felt like it compromised his life. And then he said he noticed his kids in their 20s and starting their careers, engaging in those same patterns. Like, oh, sorry, Dad, I know I said I was going to come over for dinner, but I'm so busy. I got extra work and I can't come. And he realized like that was the example that he set. And of course, his kids are modeling that now. And it was kind of a heartbreaking story. Of course, they're working on it and turning things around and recalibrating. But you're passing on all these things to little kids. So we have to watch our behaviors really carefully, especially when you're raising little ones.
Yeah, no, it breaks my heart to, if I'm ever on my phone and they're trying to get your attention and I totally just don't hear it. My wife has to kind of zap me out of the zombie trance. So it's something I'm trying to really it's affecting me more and more these days, just social media and all that, just that there's constant inputs, and I think really being cognizant of what you're allowing in is super important. We're getting pretty deep here. The topic I want to talk to you about most, cold exposure. We have time to go over that real quick, and then we can wrap it up.
Sure, man. That's a favorite topic of ours.
So, I've heard you talk about it again for years. You would do your morning cold plunge, and what what have you seen specifically in your own journey as the benefits of this morning cold exposure routine?
Yeah, I'm wondering why I started now that you asked the question. And I realized it was my friend Dave Cobran was big into this, and I was over at his house, and he had an ice machine set up in his master bathtub. And he says, "Here's what I do: I make these ice cubes, I dump them in the bath, I go for a quick jog, and I come back and I jump in the cold tub." And it just seemed such a cool thing. And early pioneers like Kelly Starrett and Brian McKenzie were talking about the benefits. Rhonda Patrick has a great 22-page research paper that you can download for free off her website with all the scientific background of the hormetic benefits of cold exposure. You get an instant boost in hormonal function. There's a great study out of Finland showing that even an immersion as short as 20 seconds into 40-degree Fahrenheit water, just above freezing, a 20-second immersion is enough to boost the prominent mood elevating, known as the focusing hormone neurotransmitter norepinephrine. It's enough to boost that for an hour to a level 200 to 300% above baseline. And I think we can all reference maybe a time where you were, jumping in the snow, or jumping into the freezing cold river in the middle of winter and screaming, and then running back into your condo on vacation or whatever. We've all had that exhilarating boost of exposing ourselves to cold and then immediately warming. So there's a way to do this in a therapeutic manner. So I want people to understand, like, this is not some torture fest where I'm trying to become the next Wim Hof Jr. and sit packed in ice for an hour and 45 minutes to break the Guinness World Record. It's more of a, short duration, optimally brief and comfortable to the individual. As they build competency, of course, they can stay longer, but it's to get that wonderful hormonal boost and to integrate it as a health practice. And, the science is showing not only the hormone boost, but you have an anti-inflammatory effect, you have an immune boosting effect. And there's plenty of research showing that our bodies respond really well to these brief brief stressors that deliver a net adaptive benefit. But for me, one of the other ones that I think is really important to mention is the psychological benefits. So the fact that I can uh, go downstairs and jump into this chest freezer filled with 36 to 38-degree water and spend a few minutes in there doing some deep diaphragmatic breaths and really entering a meditative state, because that's the best way to endure the cold without worrying about it or thinking about it and wondering when the heck you're going to get out. I just go through 20 breath cycles and I'm not really concerned. I'm just focusing on my breath. Or, since my move to Lake Tahoe, now I have the lake there in the winter months where I don't need the chest freezer. I just go swimming. And it's funny, I go to the public beach sometimes and the tourists are there taking pictures and the beach is full of snow and ice. And then, they're looking at this amazing, beautiful lake. And then some dude shows up in a bathing suit and goes in for a swim. And they're like, what's up, man? That's incredible. What are you doing? So it's kind of fun to share with the random tourist in Lake Tahoe. But it's a great way to experience nature. When I'm out there, it feels so peaceful. I'm not going in there until I get frozen and into a health risk. I'm just enjoying it. And it's making me a more disciplined and focused human, because I'm able to override all the chatter in my mind. Like oftentimes at home, I'll procrastinate and I'll think like, yeah, maybe I should sweep the kitchen floor first. It's looking kind of dusty before I go jump in the chest freezer. Or, yeah, I was gonna go jump in the lake, but maybe I should stop at the market first. I think we have some things on our list. You can always talk yourself out of it, but the fact that you go through and execute it, it feels really good. And I recommend it to anybody, even at the introductory level, which is just to turn that shower handle to cold for a few minutes, and get a sense of what the experience is like without too much discomfort.
I was doing some I'm working on it's called the Body Hardening Training Manual. It's one of our, infamous monkey training manuals for, the Stoic Kickstarter, but, I was doing some cold exposure research and norepinephrine kept coming up. And, the kind of the conclusion I came to was it's this awesome hormetic experience that it kind of resets your fight or flight response because you're in like what the body perceives as a real fight or flight situation versus like email or traffic or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like this really, very simple, essentially free way to just kind of help reset that and break up that chronic stress pattern.
Yeah, well said. And in fact, that's the best way to describe it, I think, is that it really is a fight or flight response
Mhm.
because you're entering cold water, which will kill you in a matter of time, probably in an hour or something, not 5 minutes. But then after the fight or flight response, because it's optimally brief, you experience a counter parasympathetic response. So you become relaxed and better functioning with immune and hormonal uh, afterward as you adjust and try to recalibrate back to homeostasis. So that's what it's all about. Same with a sprint workout or a strength training session, right, Dan? You're going and you're beating up your muscles. And then in the aftermath, that's when you recover and get stronger and more resilient.
I think that's a good note to end on. Brad Kearns, you're a wild man. I appreciate your time. So the book.
Coming from a wild man, I really, really appreciate that compliment. I mean, someone could call me a wild man. Maybe it's because I'm, driving recklessly down the street, but no, a real wild man. I'm enjoying that with honor. Thank you.
Oh, and so 2 meals a day, and it's out now.
It's out now, and you can go to twomealsadaybook.com and get these wonderful pre-order benefits, even though you can buy the book itself on Amazon or wherever you like to buy books. But we also have some cool bonus materials like an audio overview summary and a recipe PDF that you can download. So thanks for your interest, and boy, keep cranking out the good content. I'm so honored to be part of the show lineup.
Thanks, Brad. Stay wild out there.
Thanks, Dan.